Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the chart here of warnings and advisories, we've got freezing rain warnings, or actually advisories, have ended for the Kenai Peninsula and also for the Kuskokwim Valley, as well as the Susitna Valley, the lower Kuskokwim Valley. These have all ended, but the one for Anchorage is out until early this evening, only an hour or so left of that one. And the one for Valdez, though, here in this area, that's out for tonight, tomorrow morning, and right now scheduled to end about noontime tomorrow for freezing rain, kind of continuously falling the entire day there in the Valdez area, and expected to continue tonight and possibly through tomorrow morning as well. Up to the north, more of a wind type advisory warning thing going on. Bettles here in the lower Koyukuk Valley still under the influence of a high wind warning for this evening, for winds gusting possibly as high as 55 miles per hour. Indian Mountain there off to the southwest, and about this portion of the zone, they're seeing gusts of 40 miles an hour out of the east. And the wind advisory here for winds which are gusting to 60 miles an hour at Delta. That's out for tonight and then possibly into tomorrow as well. So moving on to the chart for Thursday. Well, that's today, but this isn't exactly the one I did. Anyway, it shows a story here, low pressure south of Kodiak Island and southeast to northwest flow with freezing rain here in the pink shaded areas, or some type of mixed precipitation, either rain, which is mostly going on out along the coast here, Cordova, southern Kenai Peninsula, and down across Kodiak Island, and or snow going on here over portions, mostly the Coast Range and then the southern slopes of the eastern Alaska Range there, or the northeastern mountains. Saw some light snow getting up into Northway, and otherwise some areas of light snow here over the southwest interior. And that wrapped back around into the Pribilof Islands today. Winds only about 15 miles an hour there, but you get some light snow and fog throughout the afternoon hours. Not too bad, nothing heavy going on out over the Aleutians or the southern Bering Sea areas. And the southeast coast there, not receiving too much in the way of any cloudiness or, well, any precipitation. Could be some variable clouds going on down there. But on the satellite, let's see, for Thursday, January 8th, that's today, so that's correct. You can see actually a fair amount of clouds in over the southeast coast, and then one disturbance here pulling northward. There's another one south of Kodiak Island, but a frontal boundary extending from the Yukon Delta down across southeast Cook Inlet into the Gulf of Alaska, and several waves rolling up that boundary, and this warm moist air sliding over the trapped remaining colder air at the surface or in the valleys. That's what creating the freezing rain problems in and around Anchorage, and also forecast to continue for Valdez into tonight. But elsewhere, any of that freezing type precipitation will be pretty isolated and not expected to amount to very much. But the gradient here, keeping the winds going between the lower pressure here in the west and the Arctic high up over northwest Canada, keeps those winds going across the passes of the eastern Alaska Range there, and also in the lower Koyukuk Valley. That's mostly a higher elevation thing there, since Battle's not reporting much in the way of wind at all. And rolling this again, you can see kind of the spin in the atmosphere there, that pulling some of that moisture on down, brought the snow into the Pribilofs today, but to the south, not a lot going on at all, and kind of breaking out here over the southwest interior to a certain extent, and fair over here, a little colder up over the east and northeast part of the state. And rolling this again, you can see this one coming up to the northeast. This latest picture about noon today, so this is currently coming over. You see the lee side notch in the clouds there across northern Cook Inlet, and again farther to the northwest. And of course on the north side of the Alaska Range, not a pattern that brings much precipitation really past the range there into the Tanana Valley. And this just kind of skirting the southeast coast here, but enough to keep the winds up. Small craft advisories through tomorrow along all of the Panhandle and in along the North Gulf Coast. And for today, we've got freezing rain in areas, as I mentioned here, over south central Alaska, with periods of rain along the coast and mostly along and off the coast of the south of the Panhandle here. Very strong high pressure over northwest Canada, 1,050 millibars, and then the lower pressure to the west, and you can see quite a few lines along the Alaska Range there, and enough of a gradient, at least to give those higher elevations of the Koyukuk Valley the winds to possibly as high as 55 miles per hour into this evening. And then coming back around, the colder air, northwest winds, but not all that strong and not all that cold back in this area, pulling some of that snow to the south, just some areas of light rain and snow along the Aleutians, ridging over the western Bering Sea, so no storms there, and that's keeping the winds way out to the west. Forecast for tonight looks wet along the North Gulf Coast with that remaining stationary frontal boundary there lying parallel to the southeasterly winds, both at the surface and aloft. So high pressure weakening fairly rapidly here from the 1,050 I had marked on there for this morning to about 1,030 millibars. So the any breezes here over the North Gulf Coast trending downward, but not ending altogether. And occasional small craft advisories here for the North Gulf Coast as each one of those individual waves roll northwestward there along that front. And some more moisture there for Kodiak Island. Mixed precipitation out over the southwest interior, but nothing too heavy expected at all, as this front possibly brings some light snow into the Yukon Delta. Mostly along the coast, winds will stay on the gusty side with this low today, Cape Newton. I'm seeing gusts 40 to 45 miles an hour from the south. And again, on the backside in this quadrant of the low, northwesterlies a little cooler and the wind's not all that strong. Rain and snow showers sliding eastward. Some of those may make landfall along the Alaska Peninsula during the evening hours and later on tonight. More of a snow shower, colder condition back to the west, and staying fair and dry up over the eastern and northeast interior. In fact, much of the Brooks Range and the Arctic coast, North Slope, dry conditions, maybe some flurries here over the northwest down in toward Norton Sound, and those areas probably escaping Nome, maybe. Anyway, rain here for Kodiak Island. That ends, kind of turns a little more showery tomorrow. Still have that low south of the island there with that circulation from the east. That could draw, probably look for at least cloudy skies at the best tomorrow with a chance of some light rain or drizzle with patchy fog. That'll be mostly up along the North Gulf Coast here with the other low right off the Panhandle there associated with the upper trough. So some showers of rain and snow mixed, or just snow possible there, and that'll spread on up into the southeast interior, again mostly along the upslope areas of the mountains of the Coast Range and the Wrangels, and then this trough cutting across the central interior from Norton Sound northeastward there to the Yukon Flats. Probably a little far east on this moisture. This low up there really formed just from flow across the Brooks Range, the lee side troughing that you get when you get surface flow going over a mountain range, and actually develop into a low center, but really no weather associated with that at all. Dry Arctic coast, eastern North Slope, and the Brooks Range. A few flurries back across the Noatak Valley, maybe the Kobuk Valley as well, and just scattered stuff here over the Koyukuk Valley, but less gradient. Wind warning will have ended by tomorrow, if not by midnight tonight there for the lower Koyukuk Valley. Band of snow here across St. Lawrence Island from Norton Sound breezy conditions, but not too strong on the winds. Few snow showers lingering around the Pribilof Islands. That front staying to the south, but will begin to affect the Aleutians a little more, definitely on Saturday. See pretty gusty winds, small craft advisories to gales, possible gusts as high as 50 miles an hour there for the central Aleutians, with rain from Nikolsky all the way out to Shimia, kind of a showery type rain for the Unalaska area. And then southeast Bering Sea looking pretty good. And that fair weather pattern extends right up into the southwest interior, into the Tanana Valley. Got an Arctic front up here with a colder air to the north and a little milder to the south. Could be a few snow showers or areas of light snow. That would mostly be on the north side of that feature there, especially with the warm front right through here. Any precipitation will be on the cold air side of the Arctic warm front with weak low pressure there west of St. Matthew Island. Could be a few snow showers, but they'll even have trouble reaching the Pribilof Islands, so probably a dry day on Saturday. Southeast flow, so really don't expect much of anything to reach any farther to the southeast. These will probably all stay back to the west, even into Saturday night and Sunday. Another trough keeps it wet, occasionally wet along the North Gulf Coast. Doesn't look like the precipitation will be too heavy on the for the rain, but probably Yakutat, Cordova will see the heaviest amount. Some of that could work on into Elfin Cove, but for the most part, the southeast coast looking pretty good. Maybe some sunshine over the central and southern areas in the afternoon, and kind of a northerly wind here. Of course, colder temperatures there on the cold air side of that front due to those north winds, turning northeast and possibly up to 20-25 miles an hour there for Cape Lisburne and Point Hope, and then westerlies here. That's a trough up there with the pushing the front along to the east, and those winds could get a little brisk, but not too bad. Anyway, moving on to temperatures today, southeast coast, upper 20s there to lower to mid 40s, 46 degrees at Klawock, one of the warmer locations in the state today, if not the warmest location. Otherwise, 42 Cordova, about the same in Yakutat, 47 Homer. Looks like that was the warm spot in the state, as well as King Salmon, with mid 40s for Kodiak Island, 2 below zero at the same time here at 4 p.m. over at Gulkana, 7 at Delta with a wind. Denali Park Visitor Center up to 41 degrees, kind of signifying the warm air aloft that's spread in over the cooler air at the lower elevations. 23 Talkeetna, 29 in Anchorage, 32 there at Kenai. Up at Fairbanks, 9 above zero. Eagle, 5 above, 8 below Fort Yukon, 5 below at Bettles with a minus 17 at Arctic Village, 10 Anatuvik, and 0 at Barrow, which was quite a bit warmer than the minus 18 at Point Lay. And over at Kaktovik or Barter Island, 4 degrees below zero. Lower 20s for the Kivalina area, all the way down into Kotzebue and Buckland. 13 degrees there at Shishmaref, 29. A lot milder at Nome with 25 at Unalakleet. St. Michael had 27. 25 over at Savunga. Same thing at Macoriac with McGrath, 17. Bethel, 25 degrees. And let's see, mid 40s here for the Alaska Peninsula, but notably cooler down the peninsula there, 35 Cold Bay, 37 on Alaska. Pretty uniform temperatures all the way out to Shimia. And for the lows forecast for tonight, again, coldest North Slope, Yukon Flats over to the eastern interior, anywhere from 5 below to 25 below in these areas, and much milder here to the south, especially south of the mountains, upper 20s to upper 30s, with 20s here over the northern Bering Sea and the Yukon Delta, lower to mid 30s for the Aleutians and the Bering Sea, and mostly in the 30s, all in the 30s for the North Gulf Coast on down the southeast to Dixon Entrance. Highs tomorrow, upper 30s to mid 40s there for the Panhandle, and kind of a range here, warmest 40s, upper 30s to mid 40s along the coast, Copper River Basin, teens to lower 20s, and a little cooler up here on the north side of the mountains there with below zero readings again for the Fort Yukon area up to Arctic Village, but into the mid 20s here over the western areas, and the North Slope staying a little below zero all the way out to the Arctic coast with 30s out across Bristol Bay and the Aleutians. And for flying weather, southeast to northwest flow, so usual spots here, western Prince William Sound down to Montague Island, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, and could be some IFR also here over the southern southeast coast at times, especially offshore where the marginal zone is. Marginal VFR mostly here over the southwest interior with some areas of upslope IFR conditions on those mountain ranges, and with the main frontal boundary itself there cutting just south of the Seward Peninsula. So some IFR around the St. Lawrence Island areas, and then kind of hit and miss over the Bering Sea. And this band, at least for most of tomorrow, staying to the south. And for the passes individually, Anatuva occasionally VFR, or will be VFR tomorrow, not occasionally, the entire day VFR. Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill starting out IFR, becoming marginal. And the lowest conditions on both entrances will be the east, or lowest conditions on the eastern entrances. That's probably where the IFR will be, and then the western entrances becoming easily VFR tomorrow. Rainy, marginal becoming VFR, and windy, wide open, Isabel, marginal becoming VFR. Upward trend from Antasta, Tanita, possibly eastern entrance at times, marginal, otherwise VFR. And for Portage, same as what we saw yesterday, west entrance marginal, the east side IFR and through the pass, Chilcoot and White, marginal becoming VFR. Freezing levels here showing southeast flow pulling 6,000 foot freezing levels here across all of the panhandle, 2,000 feet colder, but 4,000 feet all the way up to the north slope in the Arctic coast, and then some cooler air coming back around over the Bering Sea. Icing threats, southern southeast coast tomorrow, with this area sort of pulling back from the early morning hours into the afternoon, and this area sort of rotating northward. And then areas of icing possible south central Alaska, especially Prince William Sound on down toward Fognak Island, and another band here from Norton Sound in across the lower river valley areas there, and then icing free except for possible areas over the central Aleutians. And upper level wind flow chart, low pressure there off the Yukon Delta coastline with a trough extending southeastward into the Gulf. So southeast flow here with a pretty good ridge there from northwest Canada in across the northeast interior. So we've got the Arctic jet way to the north, the Pacific jet well to the south, so no big storms expected here for the next couple of days anyway. 9,000 feet, southeasterlies up to 30 knots in a narrow area there down along the panhandle, 30 knots Kodiak Island, cutting across the southwest interior. 3,000 feet, high pressure to the north, low pressure to the south, so east-southeast flow up to 25 to 35 knots here along the Gulf of Alaska. Into the southwest interior, lighter winds to the north, and some stronger winds possibly affecting the eastern Arctic coast, with the stronger wind field here staying south of the Aleutians. And with that will be the turbulence staying south of the Aleutians. Could be some moderate chops, especially early in the day with those stronger winds on the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, not too bad over the remainder of the interior. And after the break, Stargazer, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Dance of the Planets. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Plot Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. Dean, would you say I'm fond of conjunctions?
Fond is too subtle. Conjunction obsessed would be more appropriate.
Exactly. So, at the end of this week, we'll get to see the culmination of an amazing week-long rendezvous between Mercury and Venus. And then, a little over a month later, we'll see a super scoochie between Venus, the red planet Mars, and a 2-day-old waxing crescent moon.
So, join us as we go planet watching. Let's show you. Okay, we have our skies set for immediately after sunset on Sunday, January 11th, facing west. You'll notice two bright lights next to each other in the dwindling twilight. The brighter of the two is our sister planet, Venus.
The smaller and fainter of the two is the planet closest to the Sun, the planet Mercury. If you watch these two planets this week and next, As the days pass, they will get closer and closer to each other, reaching their closest appearance to each other on Saturday evening, January 10th, and they'll be moving away from each other on Sunday, January 11th.
You're probably asking yourself, why do the planets appear to move every night against the background stars?
That's a good question because it really puzzled our ancestors. For most of human history, there was no scientific explanation for what the stars were. So many cultures considered the stars as being divine. The motion of the stars through the sky was so predictable that people could actually tell time based on the position of the stars.
There were a few peculiar lights that seemed to move among the stars, appearing in a different position each night. And not only would they move, but they would change their direction, their speed, their brightness, and even their color. These lights would even disappear for a while and then reappear.
The strange behavior of these lights prompted many ancient cultures to believe that these wandering stars were greater gods than the fixed stars, and their bizarre motions were messages from the gods expressing their pleasure or displeasure with the doings of man.
Ancient Greek astronomers referred to these wandering stars as asteros planetes, which we have shortened today to planet. We now define a planet as being a relatively large spherical body that orbits a star, in our case, the Sun. Given the godly history of the planets, each of the major planets is named after a character in Roman mythology.
For example, Mercury is named after the messenger of the Roman gods. He was known for his speed, and this planet lives up to its namesake. Mercury is traveling over 100,000 miles per hour around the Sun and can complete one orbit in about 88 days. Earth completes one orbit in a little over 365 days.
Venus, the brightest and the most dazzling of the naked eye planets, was named after the Roman goddess of beauty. However, its beauty is deceptive. Venus has one of the most hostile planetary environments we know. Its atmosphere is poisonous to us, and its surface temperature is hot enough to melt lead.
So let's watch how these planets move. Go outside at sunset this week and next, and shortly after the Sun disappears, you'll see Mercury and Venus snuggling up to each other. Here they are early this week on January 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and they get super close on January 10th, and then on Sunday, January 11th, Mercury starts moving away from Venus.
Now, watch how Venus and Mercury behave next week. Here they are again, right after sunset on Sunday, January 11th. Now the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and finally January 18th. As you can see, Mercury is pretty speedy.
But wait, there's more. Let's fast forward through time and watch Venus as the weeks pass. As each week goes by, watch Venus as it gets higher and higher, and then by Friday, February 20th, you're in for a treat. Venus and the red planet Mars have a super scoochie.
And they'll be joined by a 2-day-old waxing crescent moon.
So, get outside and watch the dance of the planets.
It's easy to do when you
Keep looking up.
Welcome back. Winds 20 to 25 knots here over the southern part of the Panhandle. Northerly still, Lynn Canal, 25 knots, at least to start with, then trending down in the afternoon. And easterlies 15 to 20 to the north. Then for Saturday, go east 20 here for the north coast, and then lighter winds from the southeast at about 10 to 15 for the central and southern areas. Inside waters kind of variable, light and variable. And still northerlies 20 there for Lynn Canal, probably strongest there in the northern portion of that zone. Then for Prince William Sound tomorrow, northeast at 10. Same thing for Cook Inlet, light northeasterlies for the southern inlet, and south 20 there for Kodiak Island on the eastern marine zones. Barren Islands, southeast 20 with east winds at 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Excuse me. For Saturday, east winds at about 20, but still small craft advisories due to the seas here for the North Gulf Coast areas. Northeast 15, Prince William Sound, 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet, and 15 to 20 knots for the marine areas around Kodiak. Moving out west, Bristol Bay, light southerlies tomorrow, southwest breezes for the peninsula, and west 20 southwest Kodiak Island. Saturday, small craft advisories show up just about all areas, maybe Bristol Bay, but all southeast here all the way down to Cape Sarachev, south of the peninsula, east 30 knots, but 10 knots lighter up toward Kodiak. Eastern Aleutians, variable to southwest 10 to 20, east 15 to 20, variable to east for the central areas. It's a little more organized from the east here and stronger out toward Shimia from Adak. And then northeast 30 to 35 knots here, Adak and Atka, all the way out to Shimia. I think the gales will be mostly where I have them here at 35 knots with small craft advisories around an Alaska Island. Southwest coast, southeast at 20, east 25, St. Lawrence Island, northeast 20 for the northern Bering Sea, southwest 20 for the Pribilofs. And for Saturday, east 15, northern Bering Sea, southeast 20, light winds along the coast and westerly or easterlies, east to west flow there for the Pribilofs. Arctic coast, strongest in the morning here, gales 35, maybe 40, coming down though in the afternoon or late morning, east 10, light winds on the remainder of the coastline. And then for Saturday, east to northeast, or just northeast for the west side there, 10 to 20 knots, and a little stronger, possibly up to 30 knots brisk wind advisories, maybe for the extreme eastern Arctic coast over to Demarcation Point. And then for tonight, dry up in that area. Again, could be some gusty winds going on up there with some flurries here over the west and northwest, but dry, especially north of the Alaska Range. See most of the clearing. All the rain will be down along the North Gulf Coast. Freezing rain advisory, Valdez, ends at noon tomorrow and may have ended already for Anchorage. And continuing on, there's a look at Friday. And for Saturday, still wet along the North Gulf Coast, fair in the interior, some light snow possible along the Arctic front with colder temperatures in the North Slope and Arctic coast.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.